The title of his book, Perspective, it's actually, I don't have to go into it because it's actually the title of his talk today, which I'm super excited to hear. Our newest diplomate, please welcome Dr. Chris Boman.
Cool. I only got 19 minutes. All right, I gotta go. Cut this off. I don't have a cowboy hat, don't have muck boots on. I did get the poop off my shoes before I boarded the flight. But yes, my name is Dr. Chris Boman. I'm from Murrieta, California, not Marietta, Georgia. Only in this crowd will it get confused. But my talk today is on perspective, and I'll share why a little bit more. But this picture means a lot to me. That's myself and my two little girls. I do have a little boy as well. But I have a picture of me with my dad when I was at this pond wearing a little Mickey Mouse outfit and whatnot. And I remember as a kid thinking about this experience at the pond. Like, I can just, throw a line in, catch a fish, eat snacks, and having a wonderful time. And my dad, on the other hand, is probably thinking, like, please don't hook yourself. Please don't be weird to the people next to us. But, all the things that we worry about. And so now, being at the pond with my kids, the perspective is flipped, right? They're having the experience that I had when I was a kid. And I'm like, please don't catch the ear. Please don't step on this. Please, So perspective is everything, right? Did I flip it? Cool. So yes, I'm a pediatric chiropractor. I love saying that in this group because everyone is. I'm sure most of you can resonate with the groups that you speak with. You're like, you're a pediatric what? I never heard of that before. So I love being in a group of my own. I'm a regenerative farmer. Anybody else live on homesteads? At least have chickens or anything? Okay, cool, awesome. You are all probably going to want to do that soon, just FYI, if you're paying attention to what's happening with our food system and inflation and whatnot. Not that it's cheaper, but at least it's not Bill Gates' food or any of that sort of stuff. And I'm an author, and that kind of forms the cliff notes of what I'm going to talk about tonight. My book is called Perspective, Rewire the Brain for Success and Abundance. That is my child. That's not my office. I don't normally adjust kids on the floor. But when you're a chiropractor at home, you can do it wherever you want, right? So my story begins in high school. I wanted to be an NFL athlete. And I grew up and realized it was going to take a lot of work to make that happen, not impossible. And I didn't want to pursue that any longer, but I started to know I needed to have a career figured out by the time I graduated high school. I had always been a chiropractic patient. My sister had chronic ear infections, asthma, allergies, all these things when she was little. We went to a chiropractor. Do any of you know Dr. Brighton Moser? Any of the older people in here? No, he was like the first chiropractor in my town. He'd been practicing 40 years by the time I'd gone. So one of kind of the legends in the game. And that's when my family started getting adjusted. The story goes, obviously all the ear infections and whatnot cleared up. And so I went and interviewed my chiropractor that I was seeing in high school. And I walked in, and he had all these pictures of famous athletes, golfers and rodeo athletes and football players and whatnot that were coming to his office. I loved his lifestyle, loved the way the office looked. I loved his car. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a sports chiropractor. I am going to not be an athlete, but I'm at least going to be on the field with the athletes. And so that's why I made my decision about junior, senior in high school that I was going to be a sports chiropractor. And it wasn't until my second year in chiropractic school, I was at a seminar, and there's a chiropractor talking about the work that he's doing with kids with autism, ADHD, ear infection, things like that. And he said, I can't imagine how frightening it must be for kids to be locked out of a world that they want to be a part of. And still to this day, I get chills when I say that because he was talking about the kids that are dependent on the medical system. He's talking about the moms that are broken, scared, lied to, misinformed, and thinking that the only option is antibiotics. The only option is Adderall. The only option is something that's going to cover up the symptoms, not going to give them information about what's actually getting to the root cause of their problems. And so that's when I dedicated my career to being the very best pediatric, prenatal, and special needs chiropractor that I can be. It's just a couple action shots of my practice. So I went right out of school. I preceptored with my chiropractor from high school, independent contracted there, and it was amazing. All I had to do was tell the story and adjust. I didn't have to worry about answering phones, systems, any of those things that get really confusing out of practice. But I quickly started to grow. I set goals for 50 patients a week and hit that, 100 patients a week, hit that, 150 patients a week and hit that, to where setting goals really wasn't like doing it for me anymore. And I started to get cocky. I started to get in my head and started thinking, I am not all that. I am God's gift to mankind. I am God's gift to chiropractic. And so I started thinking about, what do I deserve? I deserve a big office. I deserve this. I deserve that. I deserve more than what I'm in right now. And so I started to take steps to move into my own practice. The chiropractor I was working with took insurance, and I decided I didn't want to do insurance anymore, so I cut it overnight. You can do it for those of you stuck in it. Patient visits dropped a little bit, but my overhead was low, so it was okay. And I started to look at spaces all around town. And I got to a point where I was turned down everywhere. I couldn't get a space, and I'm like, but this is my financials, this is my goals, this is I'm going to change the world. Yet I couldn't get out of the office that I was in, and so I surrendered. All right, I'm just going to sit here and collect my paycheck. Things are good. I'm just going to clock in, clock out. Life is going to be amazing. But it's interesting what happens once you surrender to the universe, right? Once you're going to stop taking it by the horns and forcing things to happen, and you just kind of open yourself up to, what does the Lord have for me? I started to dream. I started to wonder, man, if this office didn't have small hallways, like what would it look like? And so I started to think of an office that had an open layout. It was big for these kids with autism. I started to think about semi-private adjusting. I started to think about pediatric, like a play area that wasn't in my adjusting room, so it didn't take 10 minutes to drag the kids out of my adjusting room, right? And lo and behold, once I had this practice vision in my head, a friend calls me right in the middle of town. She's like, hey, some space opened up near me. You should come check it out. And so I walked in, and this is what the space looked like. And everybody else with me was like, oh, let's go the other way. And I knew that this was a place for me. I knew this is where I was going to create Trailhead Family Chiropractic. And so I did. I opened up in February 2018. We had an amazing year. Financially, patient goals, but it was a steep learning curve as well. Hiring, firing, training, all the things that come along with owning your own business and your own practice. But once again, when things were good, I started to get cocky. I started to think that I deserved an associate. I deserved more vacation. I deserved more money with less hours. And once again, my practice became about how chiropractic could serve me rather than how I was going to be able to serve chiropractic in the world. And so in the fall of 2019, kind of all came crumbling down. I had only marketed my practice to pediatric, special needs, and pregnancy. Any ad, any script, anything that you saw on my website, any words out of my mouth were about how I can help moms, kids, and kids with special needs. And I figured the quickest way to grow that seven-figure dream practice, taking months of vacation a year with multiple associates, was to start seeing everybody, right? So I bought into an expensive marketing program that had even more expensive reoccurring costs that I didn't really know about. And my endeavors left me with $300 left in my bank account. I had to let go of most of my staff. I stopped dreaming again. So I stopped dreaming, and I was broken. And I know I'm not alone. I know there's been other stories up here today where it's like, what am I doing? This slide is blank on purpose because I want to honor those of you and respect those of you and just come alongside those of you that might even be at that spot now. Maybe here is your last hurrah. Maybe you paid for the seminar months back, and you're like, I paid for it, I may as well go, right? Because that was me. I went to a seminar, and I started to learn about how the chiropractors were actually being successful. The ones that weren't just financially successful, the ones that loved what they did. And I figured out it wasn't technique, it wasn't systems, it wasn't payment, it wasn't plans, it wasn't technique, any of that stuff. It was what was going on up here, right? So that's what I did. I started to do what I loved. I started to remember why I became a pediatric chiropractor. I started investing into my patients. I started memorizing their names again, memorizing their soccer games, all the things about my patient. I started falling in love with the people that I was serving and falling in love with what chiropractic could do. And so February of 2020, I finally had my feet back under me, a steady stream of patients coming in. And any of you seen those seminars like back in 2020? It was like 2020 vision. This is the year to break out, The difference is I was tapped into the abundance mindset, which is what I'm going to teach you next. It's been mentioned, it's nothing new. Because when March 2020 hit, I could have very easily said, not again, and gone internal and tried to grasp and bring all things toward me and go into the scarcity mindset. But because this abundance mindset, I had committed to it for the rest of my life, things changed. And so what we're going to do for you guys today is we are going to check if you are living in a state of abundance or if you're living in a state of fear, okay? So sympathetic, from a non-scientific subluxation perspective, when your mental sympathetic state is when you're worried about yourself and your immediate decisions, regardless of the long-term consequences, right? It's like kids with autism and ADHD, like all the sugary things and whatnot. It's going to fuel what they're doing now. Versus being in a state of ease or parasympathetic, you're willing to sacrifice short-term gain for the long-term growth and get this, the benefit of those around you. Okay? There's a concept that I wrote about in my book, which I'll share with you guys. There's a difference between running away from something and running towards something. Okay? So you can make decisions out of fear. That means you're running away towards something. Or you can make decisions inspired, which means that you're running towards something. Okay? So I'd like for you to ask yourself, am I making decisions today based on fear, based on running away from what I don't like or what I think might catch up? Or are you running to accomplish something? Are you running to better the world and better humanity and better your community? The abundance mindset, in my opinion, self-care in the abundance mindset is thinking about how you can level up to make more impact. Whether it's buying that Lamborghini or going to that girls' night out, it's all about how it levels you up, not about what you deserve. Okay? Because your community needs a more equipped doctor. That's why you're here, right? Your community needs a more rested doctor, more relaxed doctor, more energetic doctor. And so if you're constantly doing these things for yourself, you're drawing away from them so that you can harbor more. Rather than saying, I'm going to do this because it is going to enable me and equip me to do that. You see how there's constant outflow, and what's going out is going to come back in. Because if you have more energy to see more patients, guess what's going to happen? More people are going to come in. If you're happier, more well-rested, guess who you're going to be for your family? That is living in the abundance mindset. So March 2020, equipped with the abundance mindset, when everybody else panicked, I grew, and I'm sure most of you did, as well. Even though I had just gotten back on my feet, not much discretionary income, I was looking out for my patient's best interest rather than what I wanted. I donated care, I supported small businesses, I did giveaways, and anything that I thought would take people out of a state of fear and inspire courage and boldness and help them live the life that they loved living. But in doing this, so I gave away a Peloton. How many likes do you think my Instagram got after giving away a Peloton when a time that people couldn't go to the gym? A ton. How many connections do you think I made? A ton. How many new patients do you think started coming to me? A ton. When I donated care, guess who referred? Those people. When I supported small businesses, guess where they went when they needed a chiropractor? To me. I wasn't doing these things to get more new people. I was doing these things to give, but in turn, me giving, living in that state of abundance, inspired other people to then live in that state of abundance, right? There's one caveat about this. You can't trick it. You can't say, so Dr. Chris said I can go buy a Lamborghini, and that would be me living in the abundance mindset. If you can't afford it, it's going to put you in a state of scarcity. But then if other people see that you're living that lifestyle and it looks like it's for yourself, the universe is going to rat you out every single time. It has to be sincere and from the heart. So come summer of 2020, I was able to hire an associate. We flew over 300 visits a week, which is a lot for some and not for others, but for me, that was a big deal. I was able to buy my dream car cash. I took more time off. I started writing my book. But trust me, driving to work in a manual transmission twin-turbo V6 car that weighs close to nothing energized me compared to driving my Toyota Corolla. And so when I left work, or when I left home and got to work, guess who I was? This is amazing, right? When I left work and got home, guess who I was? This is amazing. So that car was not a reward that I saved up for that I deserved. This car leveled up the way that I was able to serve. Does that make sense? The vacations that I took, it wasn't because I had finally broke this benchmark and I had enough money and I could go. The vacations that I took leveled me up. So when I came back, guess what happened? More and more new patients are going to be coming to the door because they recognize I have the capacity for it. And fast forward to now, constantly changing, constantly growing. So what's been the theme of 2022 so far? Prices going up or down? Everywhere, right? And so I thought, how can I disrupt? How can I do a pattern interrupt? Also, I'm not really liking where I'm at in practice, even though we were doing well. I built for high volume. That's the vision and dream that I've always had. I was only seeing maybe 50 or 60 people a day, and I hated sitting around, especially feeling bad that my wife at home was dealing with 3 kiddos. I'm coming home, squeaking through, hoping my wife has made it through the day. And so I knew I wanted to be busier. I wanted to see more people. And I also was kind of seeing the same demographic, the people that could afford me or the people that were sacrificing everything to see me. And so I lowered my prices. I went from a $150 new patient exam down to $70. I went from corrective care plans that were about $350 a month to a family plan that was less than that. I didn't go free care, Dan, but I made sure that I created a system in a way that whole families could come. And the result of this, I had a little boy come in about 7 months old. He was on about 4 or 5 different medications. He had a traumatic birth. He was the only biologic kid that these parents had, but these parents were experienced parents because they were foster kids for kids with disabilities. They told me that if this kid was a foster kid, they would have sent him back. That's how stressed this kid was making their life, because he was crying 15 to 18 hours a day. The mom previously to this kid wasn't on any medications. 7 months into having this kid, she was on 6. So I asked her why now? She's like, 1, I'm desperate. 2, I never would have made the commitment if I didn't think I could get care with my kid, and your family plan made it accessible to me. So this kid never would have come in my office had they seen the price and be like, oh, I could never afford that. And so this isn't for everybody, especially if you're not built for high volume. Don't do what I'm doing. I love seeing a lot of people a day, but I love the change that's come in my practice, because I went from collecting this much, doing care plans and whatnot, being comfortable, to now we're collecting way more. We're seeing way more, but I didn't make this decision because how it could benefit me. I made this decision because I know more people needed me in this time. I also know, as all of you know, people are needing more and more care. Sometimes 3 times a week isn't cutting it. Sometimes 3 times a week for a month or 2 isn't cutting it, right? We need to be seeing people as frequently as possible. What else did I have written there? I was also frustrated that when I was seeing this kid with autism, that's the only kid that I was seeing. I wasn't seeing the mom, or only seeing the sibling, or only seeing the mom and not the dad. And I wanted to make sure that I was seeing whole families. And so if you look at my schedule now, pretty much every block of time, every 15 minutes, it's a family of 5, family of 6, family of 7, family of 8. Not too many of those, thank the Lord. Family of 4, family of 3. It's whole families coming into my office now because it's one price for the whole family. Don't even have to worry about it. Don't spear me for not valuing care. Trust me, I value it, but I value more people's access to it, and this is what I'm built for, but it's not for everybody. I already kind of said that. So this is kind of what I want to leave you guys with. Rewiring your brain for success and abundance. Okay, hear me when I say this. You can be subluxated. When you're subluxated, you're in a state of fear, right? You can be unsubluxated and still choose to live in a state of scarcity, okay? You cannot be subluxated and live in a state of abundance, which means what? Every stinking person needs chiropractic, right? And so that's what the beginning of this book is all about, the neurophysiology behind the physical change that needs to happen before you change up here, okay? There's a lot of chiropractors here. I know some of you practice alone. I know when I went to seminars and I went alone, I was kind of afraid to ask people to adjust me. If anyone is in that state and hasn't been adjusted in a while because you don't go get adjusted with other people around you, find me. I will happily adjust you. Do not leave this seminar adjusted if you need to be. You cannot be unsubluxated, or you cannot be subluxated and live in a state of abundance. You have to be clear. Your nervous system has to be ready, because you're living in what? Your amygdala, right? You're impulsive, you're reactive. You're not living in your prefrontal cortex, which is executive function, rational decision making. So I want you to know I want you to ask yourself, what decisions are you making out of fear? Where do you want your decisions to lead to? Because abundance is not what you deserve, but what you need to serve at a higher level. So I highly encourage you. This book is on Amazon. I think Amazon is running some sale. I didn't know about it, but the hardcover is almost cheaper than the paperback right now. And then I'm recording the Audible in a couple of weeks, so you can listen to it that way if you want to. But have this book, put it on your coffee table, and let your patients read it while they're waiting for the adjustment. Give it to them, because I promise you they will be lifelong patients, because not only are they going to get it with the 3 T's, the physiology, all the science that you want to give them, but they're going to get it up here. They're going to be the people that are going to make lifelong changes. They're going to be people that are living the chiropractic lifestyle, that state of abundance. Heck, they might even want to become chiropractors afterwards. Thank you for letting me share with you. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Roll
our perspective is so important to our success in practice. I grew up in the profession watching my dad in practice, and the busiest week he ever had in practice was about 150 patient visits. And one of the best things that he ever did for me is I shadowed him one summer in undergrad, and every single week he pawned me off to another friend of his to shadow them in their practice. And it gave me different perspectives into this vast profession that we have. And I got to see massive practices, and I got to see small niche practices, and I got to expand my perspective on what this profession offers. And I think we're also getting a little taste of that this weekend with some of our speakers and how different so many of them, so it's wonderful. We've got a little bit of a break, and then we're coming back with a power close. So take 35. We're going to be back here in this room at 4:30.